Hey everyone, welcome to the Super Review Show's Mixed Bag, coming to you live once again from the J Cave. I am joined, as always, by my good man Bill Murphy.
What's going on, everyone?
Hopefully, you all are doing well tonight. Hopefully, you're enjoying yourself. Hopefully, you're staying safe. Hopefully, all is well with you. So, tonight's topic on Mixed Bag is if you watched or listened to our show last week, where we did the critics were wrong, but the audiences were right. Tonight's topic is reversed. We're doing where the critics were right about films, but the audiences were, it was okay. I didn't like it that much, but the critics were right, but the audiences were wrong. It's a bit of a hefty topic, so we didn't really have a lot to talk about tonight, but it's okay. So, Bill, are you ready for this task? Are you feeling good?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. I'm going to go first tonight. So that way you guys can, at home, can keep track. So first things first. The first movie I want to talk about tonight is a movie that came out in 1994. It bombed horrendously at the box office. This movie bombed. But here we go, talking about The Shawshank Redemption. Hear me out for a sec. This movie, what you're looking at now, for those who are listening to this, you won't be able to see this unless used for movies. However, it currently has a 98% critic score. That came later. And here's what I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen. The critic rating came out in 1994, and the critics who saw this movie in theaters loved it. They loved it because this movie was a financial tank at the box office. I've gone on record. I've watched other people talk about this movie before in theaters when it first came out in theaters, and people are like, oh, it's the greatest movie I've ever seen. Blah 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 blah. At the same exact time, guys, you have to understand this movie was a financial tank at the box office. It made $10 million like opening weekend, and then $10 million for the first 10 weeks. It was in theaters. The budget was $25 million. It did not break even, and it made about $58 million worldwide. It was considered to be a financial loss for the studio, which is very unfortunate. But the critics were right, and the audiences were wrong in this case because no one saw the movie in theaters. It was a financial bomb. However, it's widely regarded as one of the most critically acclaimed movies of all time. So, that being said, I think that this movie is a good, is an interesting example about how this type of topic works for some people, where just because it's highly regarded or highly ranked, whatever, on Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic or wherever you get your critic information, like, oh, the critics liked it, but audiences hated it, or audiences loved it, critics hated it. That's just an example of that, where it is a beloved movie. However, like I said, it tanked at the worldwide box office. It did barely any money at all in theaters, and yet it's widely regarded as one of the most critically acclaimed films of all time. Bill, am I making sense so far?
Yeah, you know what? That's kind of weird that that The Shawshank Redemption actually didn't really do so well at the box office, because a lot of people now consider that an absolute classic. Shawshank Redemption, they consider that an absolute classic,
widely regarded as one of the greatest films of all time too. But go on.
Because we've talked about this before when we did like an Oscar upset thing, when they interviewed members of the Academy, and they asked them to cast their vote again, they said they would have voted for Shawshank Redemption over Forrest Gump.
For Best Picture.
That
is incredible. So, I mean, who would have thought? I mean, it is widely regarded as one of the greatest films of all time in like 1994, but no one saw it in theaters. So that being said, with the audiences, it's so difficult to pick and choose like what. This is a very interesting topic that we chose tonight. I mean, it was very hard to make a list. We only have four.
This list was a bitch to make. It really was.
we only have we literally only have 4 films each, and this is one.
I almost had a nervous breakdown making the list. JT can testify to that.
I can testify to that because it's Bill and I, before we went live tonight and before we started talking tonight, we were thinking this topic was going to we weren't going to do a show tonight. That's how tough it was for us. We were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So, but thank God we got it to work and whatnot. And here we go. So anyways, lo and behold, I think that the Shawshank Redemption, the critics were right, but the audiences were wrong simply because the movie came out and no one saw it in theaters. That
doesn't mean the audiences were necessarily wrong. They just
yeah. Well, exactly. But at the same time, the people who did see in theaters like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like I bring this up all the time. One of my main influences when why I do this channel in the first place, John Campia, shout out. I love you. You're amazing. He saw it in theaters. He was like one of the only people who saw it in theaters back in the day. And he's like, oh my God, it's like a near perfect film. And he doesn't use that word a lot, but he said it was near perfect. So anyway,
it's a really near perfect film.
It's hard to come by a film like this, and it's like once in a lifetime. If you haven't seen Shawshank Redemption, get on it. It is a brilliant movie. It's a very sad but very emotionally powerful film. It's really good. I highly recommend it. Anyways, Bill, so that's my first pick, Shawshank Redemption. Are you ready for my next pick?
Let's do it.
Now, again, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is a movie. This is the topic tonight is where the critics were right, but the audiences were wrong, quote unquote, because either no one saw it or the audiences just didn't like it, but the critics did. One of those films is I found out, and we just looked at it just now, was Citizen Kane. I'll get to another pick in a second, but Citizen Kane. If I could spell it right, Citizen Kane. If I could spell it right, sorry everyone. Citizen Kane. Like I said, for those of you who are listening to us on podcast, you just have to look this up online and understand where we're coming from with this. So, by the way, it currently holds a 99% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience score is 90%. This is another example of that type of film where it was a financial box office bomb back in the day, in the 40s, because World War II was going on and people had trouble seeing it and because of all the war efforts. But anyways, long story short, this movie, the critics were 100% correct. It is a brilliant movie. However, barely anyone saw it. I'm not trying to blame audiences when I say this.
Yes, we blame audiences.
Yes, screw you, audience members. I'm one of those people, so I'm included in that conversation. But like I said, this is one of those examples where no one saw this movie in theaters, and yet again, it's widely regarded as one of the greatest movies of all time, Citizen Kane. It is widely considered to be an incredible classic amongst cinema fans everywhere. But no one saw it in theaters. And how could we not forget, Bill, what Mr. Matt Hemsley talked about, one of our dear friends and loyal fans of the Super Review Show. He did bring up the fact that this movie did not win Best Picture, but there's another film that no one's ever heard of that won Best Picture that year, and it's only known for winning Best Picture because it beat Citizen Kane.
Yeah, and that was How Green Was My Valley.
Yeah.
Because, it's like that movie is so forgettable. It's only known for beating Citizen Kane. That's the only thing it's known for.
For Best Picture, the Oscars, which is, again, that could be a whole nother conversation too, like the Oscar snubs and whatnot, but we kind of did that already, but yeah. Anyways, that's just where we stand on that. So Citizen Kane, if again, full disclosure, if you have not seen Citizen Kane, do yourself a favor in quarantine nowadays and watch Citizen Kane. It is widely regarded as a pivotal film in cinema history. Get on it. Highly
get on it.
Get on it. I mean,
jump on it. Jump on it. Jump on it.
Oh yeah.
Doom, 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 doom. Jump on it. Jump on it.
Now we're getting the groove, ladies and gentlemen. There we go, Bill. So yeah, that is one of my picks tonight was Citizen Kane, a movie that people did not see in theaters, but it's widely regarded as one of the greatest movies of all time, critically speaking as well. And fun fact, Bill, did you know that the reason why it's not at 100% anymore was because a negative review came up like 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
No.
You can look this up. A negative review of the film came out, which lowered it by 1%. That's a little, risque, touche, but that's me. So whatever. Anyways, I digress. Let's jump over to my next pick here on tonight's episode of Mixed Bag. I want to talk about, this is a film that Bill and I touched on. It did at the box office. I'm going to look it up on Wikipedia as well, but Trainwreck with Amy Schumer.
Trainwreck.
This movie, first off, Amy Schumer, I love you. You are a great actress and you're super funny.
Call
Amy. Call me. Look at this for a second. Hear me out, everyone. Actually, I need to look it up on Wikipedia because let's face it, it's true. Trainwreck currently holds, ladies and gentlemen, an 84% with the critics. It's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. But what did the audience think of it, Bill? They thought of it as 66%.
So that's basically okay.
It's okay. I loved it. Not just because it has Billy Joel songs in it, but
that's one of his reasons.
That is one of my reasons. But it is a fun chick flick. It's a great romantic comedy film. I love this movie. I have it on Blu-ray, like I talked about in our Guilty Pleasures broadcast. I have it on Blu-ray. So, but get the fact that Trainwreck is certified fresh 84% by the critics. However, it has a 66% rating on as far as audience scores. Mm-hmm. Look, I'm just going to come out and say it. I love this movie. I said that at least 10 times already. Let's face it. But that was when I first did my research. I was like, "What movies?" And let me look up Trainwreck. Let me see what movies that, like the critics agreed with, but the audiences didn't. I can't believe this was on there. It was such a fun movie. I mean, that's me personally. I'm not the audiences, but I mean, this is a prime example. Bill, what do you think about Trainwreck? I know we talked about this a little bit, but like,
I've watched it a few times. I've watched it once or twice. I was watching it with some of my female friends in the dorm room one night when we just didn't want to go out. I said, "Hey, let's watch Trainwreck." I'm like, me, a guy watching a chick flick. I'm like, okay, what the heck? And I remember there were parts I was laughing my ass off.
I was too. It was such a funny film. And I brought this up on our Guilty Pleasures broadcast. If you want to go back and look at that up too. But the John Cena movie theater scene in this movie was hysterical.
It was. It absolutely was.
And John Cena is a good actor. He's actually doing really well nowadays too, with Peacemaker and whatnot too. He's a great actor. So you say what you will about the WWE, like Dwayne Johnson and whatnot, The Rock and whatnot, but like these actors, they become good actors. I mean, look at like John Cena. He's being a pretty good actor so far. And he did a great job in this movie. He was a small role, but he nailed it in my opinion. So that's me. But Trainwreck. Audience's score was 66. The critic rating was 84%. Incredible. And LeBron James makes an appearance too. Woo! LeBron, the GOAT. The GOAT, LeBron James. LeBron
I don't know. It's either him or Michael Jordan.
It's actually a tough decision. Well, that's a conversation for the Sports Insanity Network.
That's a debate for the Sports Insanity podcast. Check us out. We're on all platforms. Shameless plug.
Shameless plug for them. They do a great job. Just saying.
Yeah.
Anyways, Trainwreck. Fantastic movie. Oh, it is. Fantastic. I liked it more than the audiences did. And I agree with the critics on this, but apparently not everyone did. That's me. Bill, I have one more movie as an honorable mention, but I'm curious to see what you have to say about this because I didn't look it up on Rotten Tomatoes yet. So full disclosure for everyone who's watching and listening, I haven't looked at some movie yet. But Saturday Night Fever.
Oh God, I've never seen it.
I saw it like once.
Of course, I know the soundtrack.
Who does not know the soundtrack? And this is Staying Alive. Staying Alive. This is another example of what I'm talking about. Thankfully, if those who are watching, good for you. For those who are listening,
good for you.
Good for you as well. The audience score is 71%. It's good. People liked it. The critic rating for Saturday Night Fever was 82%.
82%.
So 82% of the critics liked it enough to give it a fresh rating. But 71% of the audience said it was good. I liked it. Interesting move. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, by the way, Saturday Night Fever was made in 1977, the same year Star Wars came out, and countless other films as well. But
mainly Star Wars. That's the only movie that we care about that came out in 77.
Exactly. Close Encounters of the what? Anyways.
No, that was good too.
That was really good too. But look, Saturday Night Fever was like, I'm actually surprised about how high the critic rating is. I mean, I like the movie in general, but like, I'm surprised about how high it was because everyone forgets about the movie. They remember the soundtrack of Saturday Night Fever with the Bee Gees, with, Kool and the Gang and all these 70s disco R&B groups. But the fact that the movie has an 82% rating on a critic rating and it's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes and the audience score is at a 71. Damn, you have my attention. That's great. Bill, what's your take on Saturday Night Fever?
Like I said, I've never seen it, so I can't really speak to the matter, but It is one of those cultural things.
Yeah, it's product of its time too, if you think about it. Because like disco died in like 80.
Nah, 78, 80.
This is like the end of the disco era, unfortunately.
It kind of is.
This movie came out, and then like a year or two later, it's like punk rock and new wave took over. And thus history was made. So
history was made.
But yeah, but like I said, the critic rating for Saturday Night Fever is 82%, and audience score is 71. So this is and this is a movie that people saw, and apparently the critics liked it more than the audiences did, which is a very interesting premise. If you have any ideas, if you have any other like comments on this, leave them in the description below. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. But anyways, those are my picks. 4 picks for tonight's topic here. So I said Shawshank Redemption, Trainwreck, Citizen Kane, and Saturday Night Fever, with no other films we could think of. Like, this is a really difficult thing for us to do tonight. But those are my 4. Bill, what do you have lined up for us tonight?
Okay, what do I have lined up for you? Okay, I have 2 that the critics liked.
Okay.
And 2 the critics disliked, and I agreed with them. Okay. One is, we're going a little art housey here. It's a Coen Brothers movie called Hail Caesar.
I have heard of this movie.
It's
2016, right?
2016. Okay. It stars Josh Brolin, George Clooney. George Clooney plays a big actor. I want to say this was like in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And the actor is kidnapped as they're trying to make this film that's that could be considered very controversial. They have all like these religious figures. I think it's about Jesus. I can't remember. I've only seen this movie once, but I do. It shows sort of like the golden days of the Hollywood era.
Yeah.
And what the funniest thing is, George Clooney in this movie is kidnapped by communists.
That's funny.
It's just, they don't portray them as like Russians with their Mother Russia. They portray him a bunch of guys with these like stuffy British accents, and then and George Clooney wakes up in this room, and a bunch of these guys in suits are sitting around, and they go, "What is this?" And they're like, "Oh, this is our study group. This is a study group. It's our study group. JT, it's our study group.
It's our study group. Love to hear it.
It's our study group."
For those who are listening in the UK, we're trying not to mock your accent. We love you guys.
Yeah, this is our. It's just a study group. And then like, study group for what? And then the narrator goes, "He did not know he was kidnapped by commies." and it's just so funny. And it's not like roll on the floor, piss your pants funny, but it's just, it is kind of, it's entertaining. And they're like telling him all this stuff. And at the end of the movie, he's like, those guys are pretty smart. And he's like repeating all the communist talking points.
Oh my God.
And it's like, yeah, but that's just like the side thing to try to look for him and trying to get the movie off the ground.
Yeah.
It's our study group.
Yeah.
DK, it's our study group.
It's our study group. Love to hear it.
And then, hey, those commies are pretty smart. And then, yeah, I actually first saw this movie in the early days of the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Wow, I can't believe that was almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, frightening.
What was that?
Yeah, frightening, but go on.
And my friend texted me, because I don't know if you know this, there's this thing called Netflix Watch Party.
Okay.
Where you can watch movies with your friends without actually having to be in the room.
Oh, that's cool.
And he goes, "Hey, do you want to watch a movie tonight? Netflix Watch Party?" He goes, "What are you thinking? Hail Caesar?" I'm like, "Okay." So I enjoyed it. I think the reason why critics didn't like it, why critics like it, is it's the Coen brothers, and they do tend to be sort of more art housey.
Yeah.
They sort of tend to be more art housey, and they tend to be more art housey, and I don't think that really appeals to a lot of audiences. And don't get me wrong, it's the Coen brothers, who are really good. And you know what? I wonder if there's other Coen brothers movies that I'll maybe put on my list. Hold on. 1 second.
No worries, bud. Take your time.
Hold on. I'm just going to see if it could qualify. No, it doesn't. But anyway.
That's all right.
But yeah. Yeah, I actually really did enjoy this movie. And it's just like a fun mystery, too. Okay. My next one is a movie that critics were kind of split on, but they kind of liked it more than the first one when it first came out. And that was, you know what? Hold on 1 second. I just got to plug in my laptop.
Yeah. So while Bill is figuring out his most recent pick, I want to thank all of you for watching us live, as always, and tuning in for our wonderful discussions tonight, as always. This portion of the show is brought to you by Panera Bread. If you love Panera Bread, subscribe. Use our promo code TSRS. I'm totally kidding. We actually are not sponsored at all by Panera Bread. Just saying.
Panera Bread, if you're watching, don't sue us.
Yes, I love Panera Bread. Thank you so much, but don't. That was just a joke. Anyways, Bill.
So, okay, my next one is actually Gremlins 2, The New Batch.
Interesting pick. Go ahead. Tell us about it.
Well, because if you remember when we talked last week, a lot of critics did not like the first Gremlins movie.
Correct.
Because they satirized it for being too violent. Because they went after it because they said they thought it was too violent. And because I think in this one, it does take a different tone than the first one. The first one tended to be more like a family-friendly horror movie, this tried to be more like a comedy, and it satirizes sequels, and I think the critics liked that it kind of took that approach more, and like, for instance, like, because they made a few plot changes. One is, instead of a small town, they took a place in New York City.
Oh, God.
And why do you say, oh, God?
No, because it's instead of a small town of gremlins, you have an entire city of gremlins.
Well, they actually first wanted to have the gremlins run around Manhattan, but they said that would have been too expensive. So they just kept them all in one building.
Yeah, that's money.
And here's what happened. Remember the old Mr. Wynn, who was Gizmo's old owner?
Yes.
He dies. Gizmo's on his own.
Oh, Gizmo.
He gets picked up by these weird scientists. And Billy, Zach Galligan, finds out that he's there. And one of the scenes that I love in this movie is when the two scientists found him, and the head one, who's played by the late, great Christopher Lee.
Oh, wow.
He's like, and they find us, look what we found. And they're like, cute, isn't it? And they're like, oh, that may be genetic, but we're not sure yet. Oh, we're not sure. And they're like, watch this, doctor. And they're playing the song I'm Ready by Fats Domino.
I'm dead. That's nice.
And then what happened was and then because it was originally supposed to be a Billy Idol song, because the studio told them they had the rights, but it turns out they didn't have the rights. So they went with Fats Domino and they didn't want to reshoot the scene, so they went with Fats Domino because they had the same rhythm. But anyway, and Gizmo tries to escape, and Christopher Lee goes, "Not so fast." And then he goes, "You could have let him get away." And he's about to dissect him, and he's like, "For that, my little friend, we're just gonna have to cut you." And Gizmo like, so Zach Galligan gets Gizmo, and that scene, it's just so nice to see Billy and Gizmo back together. It's like, and then Gizmo gets wet. Guess what, folks? Here we go again. Because if anyone saw the first Gremlins, you know the 3 rules. Don't put them in bright light, especially sunlight, because sunlight kills them. 2, don't get them wet. They multiply. And 3, no matter how much they beg, no matter how much they cry, what is the final rule, my friend?
Don't feed them after midnight.
Oh, guess what happens?
All 3 happen.
Gizmo gets wet.
Ugh.
They multiply. He multiplies. And guess when they multiply, guess everyone else but Gizmo, guess what happens? Go ahead. Take a wild guess what happens.
Let me guess. He feeds him after midnight.
They eat after midnight. And guess what happens when they feed him when they eat after midnight?
Ay.
You're in trouble. Did you guys watch the first movie? Don't feed him after midnight. It's that simple.
Yeah, guys, come on.
And then the Gremlins basically, like I said, they wanted to have Gremlins running around Manhattan, but they thought it was going to be too expensive.
Yeah. For those who don't know, shooting in New York City is very expensive, but yes.
And like there is actually, yeah, and they kind of satirize sequels. Like there is a scene when Zach Galligan's character is talking to all these people, and they're like, listen, and they're like, they're going to crazy Gremlins, little monsters, and they're like, no, I dealt with these things before, and like, listen, you feed them after midnight, they become like, they kind of satirize in the first one. He tells people they think he's crazy, and they're like, please, you gotta believe me. Go, oh wait, feed him after midnight. Okay. What if and they start like making fun of the rules, and they're like, okay, what if one of them goes to a different time zone? It's midnight there, but it comes here when it's not midnight. Do they still turn to that? Goes, I don't know. And they go, okay. What if one of those Magua things eat something and get something stuck in his teeth? Yeah, like a sesame seed or something. And they're like, well, he technically did not eat that after midnight. And they're like, yeah, that is true. So what if it comes out at midnight? I go, yeah, because he technically didn't eat it after midnight. And then one of the Gremlins come out and just kills one of them. And they're like, okay, I think this is serious. And they make a satire of, I don't know if you remember that scene in the first one of of how Phoebe Cates' character goes about how she doesn't believe in Santa because they found her dad dressed as the body. Going, did Lincoln give up? Go, no, don't mention Lincoln. And it was kind of like a satire of the I don't believe in Santa Claus story from the first one.
Right. Yeah.
So they kind of make it a satire, and the tone was a little lighter too, and the critics actually did like it more than the audiences. And we talked about this last week when we talked about the first Gremlins. Leonard Maltin, the great Leonard Maltin, he didn't like the first Gremlins movie. He didn't like the first one.
Right.
And in the film, he actually made a cameo making his review of the first one. And he's like, this is disgusting, horrible, invalid. And then the Gremlins are behind him and they kill him. And they're like, no, I was just kidding.
That's funny.
And he actually did give a positive review of Gremlins 2. So, but you know what? It makes me think. I wonder if Joe Dante was like, just sit here, Leonard, and like, payback's a bitch. Or if it was like, or if it's like, or they told him what was going on, and Leonard Maltin was just being and Leonard Maltin was just being a good sport. And it's like, okay, I have a sense of humor. So, yeah, but you know what? I think critics liked it because maybe they did take sort of a lighter tone, and audiences maybe because they really loved the first. But you know what? Because like I said, the first Gremlins, I said this last week, there were a lot of complaints because there was a scene in the movie when a mom rakes out a little girl. That was based on an incident when a mother took her child out of the theater during the first Gremlins movie. So, wow. Yeah, it makes you. But I wonder why audiences didn't like it. Maybe they didn't like the tonal change. Maybe they didn't like the tone change, Yeah,
I mean, it could be anything. I mean, it all depends. I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Art is subjective. All art is subjective. But I don't know. It all depends on what the viewer and the critics behold. And ultimately, it's whatever they say. So that's me. That's my viewpoint on that. But yeah, I Gremlins too. Good pick.
Okay. And now this is a one. And now these two are ones that critics didn't like. And that was Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. The Rise of Skywalker. Oof, let's talk about it.
You saw it too?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, dude.
You know, I did too. And you know what's the interesting thing here?
What?
It's like the previous film, The Last Jedi. Critics liked it, and the fans didn't like it.
Correct.
And here it's sort of the opposite. The critics didn't like it, but the fans did.
Yeah, like a complete 180.
And you know what? I feel like it was just a rehashing of the original one.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I just really did not like it. I just found it dull. I kind of found it, I don't know, I just didn't like it. And
there were some parts of it that were like, what's going on? You know what I mean?
It being like how she's the emperor, how Rey is the emperor's granddaughter or something like that.
Yeah, that was weird.
And Supreme Leader Snoke, and I'm like sitting here watching it, like, what the fuck is this? Ooh, sorry.
You're fine. What's up?
I'm like, what is this crap? Like, What is this? And I'm just like sitting there, and I'm just sitting there. Yeah, it just was really. Yeah, I did not enjoy this movie. It was kind of,
Yeah. I hear
But you
you.
know what? I will admit I did like the ending.
The
You know
very end?
why? You know why?
Why?
Because it was over. No,
Yeah.
I did like the ending because I feel like it was more. I just feel like the ending was more. I feel like it was a perfect way to end the Skywalker saga.
I tend to agree with that.
I feel like, I do feel like I feel like it was a good way to end the Skywalker saga.
I you can't really deny that. I mean, they did end it on a very satisfying note. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but just the approach was just
Yeah.
because of the Star Wars sequel. I I liked Force Awakens.
Me too.
Last Jedi was
Yeah.
and I didn't like Rise of Skywalker.
Hmm. It
So
kind of
here's
like a slow progression downward of quality for you.
yeah, like the only really good one in that series that I thought was actually good was The Force Awakens. Like I said, I didn't really like Last Jedi, and I didn't really like Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. I'm actually on the same boat as that. I mean, I think it went down in quality as time went on, but I think this is another conversation for another time. But the spin-off movies were excellent. The spin-off of Rogue One and Solo, I thought were pretty good. But that's me. It's conversation.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, conversation for another time.
Okay, and my last one, and this was a movie that you guys heard me bash a bunch of times. And this is a movie that people watch every freaking Halloween, and I want to just smack people for watching it. Hocus Pocus.
What's the critic rating for this?
You'll see.
I'm actually curious. Really? Holy God! Why don't you read off that what that is?
38%. No, because I remember reading something that when it first came out, this movie was slammed by critics.
Oh yeah.
This movie was absolutely slammed by critics. And the audiences, because a lot of people have nostalgia around this movie. And that was because a lot of people have nostalgia around this movie because everyone feels like they grew up with this movie.
Yeah. Some people like it, but
And no, like if you watch Freeform's 31 Nights of Halloween,
it's
you
on
gotta
there.
see what was that?
It's on there.
It's on like every single freaking night.
Yeah.
And it's just, guys, if you want to hear more of my detail, go watch when we did our most overrated movie discussion last year. Like, I gave this movie the well-deserved bashing it deserves.
Yeah.
This film, I do not like it, and I cannot believe I'm saying this. The critics were right. The critics were 100% absolutely right. And that is how I feel. I have two movies that the critics liked and two movies the critics disliked.
You heard it here first.
From my lips to God's ear.
Is that year 4?
Yeah, that's my 4.
Well, ultimately, guys, I mean, like I said, this was from the get-go. This is a really difficult thing for us to come up with, to be honest. It was really hard to make these lists for us. I mean, I can't really think of any other films, to be honest with you, that we can talk about that, like where the critics were right, but the audiences were wrong. And I know we talked about it. What we thought about was the closest we could think of.
Okay, so let's look at the chat, shall we?
Sure, go ahead.
Joe Wiley, greetings, and guess who's been watching? Mackenzie!
Hello, Matt Hemsley. Hello, Joe.
Matt
Rogan.
Hemsley's been watching. Okay, let's see what Matt Hemsley has to say. He Googled movies that were more popular with critics than audiences. What I like is Adventureland. I never saw that, Matt, but I remember you said you liked it. And he goes, movies that critics gave bad reviews to that deserved it were Project X, never seen. Grown Ups, which I've seen a little bit of. It's just, you know what? Maybe the critics were right on that one. I didn't even sit through the whole thing. It's just Adam Sandler being Adam Sandler.
Yeah, pretty much.
And just a bunch of grown man children. And American Reunion, which is the American Pie thing.
Yeah, one of those American Pie films.
Hey, with Adventureland, if Matt Hemsley likes it, it must be good. You know why? You know why, JT?
Why?
Because Matt Hemsley knows everything.
Matt Hemsley does know everything. Props to
Matt Hemsley knows everything because he's Matt Hemsley.
Props to Matt Hemsley. So,
well, yeah, but guys, we're gonna be honest with you. This list was a bitch to make.
Oh no, this list was like just ridiculously crazy to make, to be honest with you guys.
I had a nervous breakdown right in it. So
Bill, like, no joke, before we went live tonight, Bill actually, like, no joke, was about to have a heart attack. He was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I'm like, oh, do you want to change topic or why not? But ultimately, it's what you have to say. If you have any suggestions, if any movies where the critics were right and instead the audience is wrong, jump down in the comment section below, share this video. And if you're listening to us for this podcast, thank you so much for listening. As always, you guys are outstanding. And I know he plugged it before, but Bill, you have a podcast that you do.
Sports Insanity Podcast. Check us out. We are on all platforms. Guys, we're going into full swing here, folks. It's tomorrow, Thursday night. Check us out for the divisional playoff preview for the Saturday games on Thursday Night Gridiron. And don't forget to check us out. We're going to be. Yeah, it's that time. It's
busy season.
It's the busy season.
Yeah.
Well, our busy season is literally from September to February. So
yeah, of course.
So okay. Well, we will see you guys next week then.
Definitely. So tune in next week for another episode of Mixed Bag. We hope you guys enjoyed this. As always, sound off in the comment section below. Share your thoughts on this. And if you're listening to us, keep following us on our Spotify podcast.